Howdy y'all, welcome to crÆft. Today I'm going to be pitching 3 reasons why you should be choosing a West Marches style campaign for your next TTRPG, also called an MMO TTRPG. Not only is this style of campaign more accommodating for players, it also creates a persistent, real, breathing world that lives aside along our own and shudders at the thought of pausing time. Howdy y'all, welcome back to crÆft with Brady, and today, before we get into the 3 reasons why you should be playing a West Marches style campaign, we should first define what it is. It was a concept created by Ben Robbins, who envisioned a style of campaign that accommodated nearly a player group of up to 16 people, and today people are sort of shocked at that idea, but the concept was to have a rotating player base as needed that could accommodate to hectic schedules that offloaded the scheduling to the players rather than the GM. That essentially was a sandbox style campaign where you were dropped into a hub and essentially told to only go west. Back east, there is nothing but retirement in the old world. Adventure and dungeons and loot and treasure is out west, hence the name West Marches. The further you go out from the initial location, the more dangerous and richer the reward becomes. And I think one of the better ways of describing this is like what Ben Milton of Questing Beast called it, a massive multiplayer massive multiplayer tabletop role-playing game. It's essentially if you had Breath of the Wild or Elden Ring with a bunch of your friends and you dropped in at level 1 and that you were just told to find what's out there, make your own story. So now with those definitions out of the way, let's get into our 3 reasons why. Reason number 1, scheduling. The number 1 enemy of really any gaming group is going to be scheduling problems. Trying to get 4, 5, any more than that is going to be difficult to align busy, hectic schedules, and sometimes things do happen last minute. But what happens if you're in the middle of a campaign arc, you're approaching the big bad boss's lair, you all agreed to meet up next week, but the next week, someone can't come? Well, now you don't want to fight the big old bad boss without your buddy pal Paladin, do you? So you agreed to meet up next week. But then the week after that, all of a sudden, the wizard's car broke down. Totally understandable, cannot make it. But now you don't have your level 5 wizard with the fireball. Do you still want to fight the big bad guy? And he really did have that one backstory with the sorceress that's up in that tower, so he really did put a lot of time in it, so we should wait again. But then week after week, something happens, and it seems like the campaign forever gets put on hold. Although many of these dramatic moments are quite fun to enact out, they ultimately become unrealized because the game group is unable to ever meet up. Now, in the case of a West Marches style campaign, in case Johnny the Nevron Goblin is not able to show up for 1 week or 2, that's totally okay because each gaming session is its own unique episodic feel with a subset of group of players every single session. Nevron the Goblin is definitely going to be there when he confronts his sorceress girlfriend that backstabbed him, and the party will make sure because that's the session that he decided to make sure it was going to happen and he had time to be there. And thus, the players are able to explore their own goals at their own pace without having to forego any rewards or roleplay experiences. This way, the narrative arcs are only organized as the players interact and realize it. This style of gameplay also allows the veteran players of the campaign to play with other newer faces as well. It can easily canonically import new players, where sometimes it's kind of a headache to teleport a new player in the middle of a dungeon. It can be done, and sometimes it is totally reasonable to play a one-off, one-shot or two-shot or a mini-campaign. Those things do sort of happen, but we all understand that the energy of a campaign does fizzle out if no one has been playing in that game world for a certain amount of time. And that's one thing that we always strive to prevent here on this channel is premature campaign death, PCD. So essentially, picture a scenario like this for your gaming group. A number of players this week are interested in visiting Kings Barrow, so they decide to organize. And they decide that Thursday, 6 of them are going to head to Kings Barrow. They all decide that they're going to meet up at 6:30. At the last minute, it turns out Glimgold the priest is unable to attend. That's okay, he's going to stay behind. It's really not okay for the other players, who are quite sour at losing the priest. So the rest of the party shows up, heads to King Barrow for that day, does their dungeoneering, and then heads back to town to rest. and end their session. This way, canonically, it's easy to tie up loose ends and plot holes because all the characters always end in a safe spot, if they make it there. And in this case, players always know where they want to head next. There's also the opportunity of finding new hub cities and branching out there and venturing to new undiscovered locations. Either way, the adventure is in the player's hands. So moving on, we're going to go to reason number 2. With the players informing the GM of the decision ahead of time of where they're going, King's Barrow, the Howling Caves, Bittermold Keep, the GM knows exactly what they need to prep for the next session. The GM might know exactly it's going to be Wednesday at 4. It's definitely going to be a party of 4 investigating the ghostly battlefield. So he will need to know if any random encounters need to be taking place between Gloomhog, the hub city, and the ghostly battlefield, and perhaps on the way back. And of course, the event location of the ghostly battlefield itself. In my Shadow Dark campaign, I am actually using The Blessed and the Beast by another YouTuber, Red Mage GM. Check it out. You only ever need to plan one session ahead of time, which is a huge stress off of our backs in case you have a busy, hectic schedule like me who has 3 kids and a wife to plan around. When it comes down to the realities of time, it is precious, so I like to make use of it as best as I can. In some cases, you could even hype a player up and tell them that there's an interesting dungeon in the Veiled Jungle, a place known as the Inferno Forge. And until they're ready or interested to go there, you don't even have to have it ready. This sort of prevents a lol random player choice, and this will keep the players focused on their goals and the task at hand. Derailing and doing something else is non-negotiable. Telling the GM that they wanted to go to the ghostly battlefield, but instead deciding that they wanted to go to King's Barrow is a big no-no, unless the GM is already prepped for it. Typically, it's exploring uncharted regions that's more of a headache. And on that note, you can even borrow and steal other people's adventures for your own campaign. I'm vague on the word steal, by the way. But essentially, like I just did, I use another GM's single adventure location as merely a drag and drop one in mine. That way you can even cobble together one of your own dungeons from different parts of from other adventures that you really enjoy. Take something like the Waking of Willoughby Hall and drop it in the woods and just tell the players that there is a spooky old haunted mansion there in the middle of the woods and just wait for them to go explore it. You essentially as the GM now have free reign to drop in whatever you want into this game world, whether it's something of your own creation or if you're saving on time like me, you can just use someone else's pre-made stuff for your own. And this also supports the amazing Shadow Dark and other third-party content community. Now I can hear maybe some naysayers saying that it doesn't sound like there's much narrative to this game, but in really it's the opposite, that the players are essentially creating the narrative as they go, interacting and creating bonds or enemies with NPCs along the way. And then when you get into faction play, that's when things really start to become interesting, as the players begin to invest and respond and react to the game world itself. So you still could drop a big bad evil guy in the volcano who's deploying minions across the realm for your players to discover and fight. But until they decide to go over to the volcano and do something about it, then you don't have to worry about it. Although, as I mentioned, that's where some of the fun is starting to implement some of the persistent game world ideas and increase the faction's power. So that way, sometimes the players might come into your game world and find out that little old Norgskarn had been attacked by the big bad evil volcano dweller. And it's up to the new plot thread in case the players actually want to do it on the next round or not. And with that, we'll move on to the official third point of this video, and that a West Marches style campaign really allows for this massive multiplayer tabletop role player game experience. I love the idea of logging onto a game world and embodying this other avatar that is actually living in this other artificial world, and that it continues to exist and breathe outside of our experience inside of it. It doesn't matter if we are viewing it, it is still perpetuating. Now, at the end of your session, while you're safely in your town hub, you can take advantage of modern media to constantly have gameplay with your group, really fleshing out the massive multiplayer TTRPG aspect of what the West Marches style offers. If you've got a large group, maybe you need to swap rumors or maps from dungeons you've all explored, rooms that have yet to be excavated, or enemies to beware. Miss a session as Nevron the Goblin Wizard? Have no fear, you can still play this week. you can spend some of your old gold on maybe a Sage question. Talk to the GM in the Discord about using all that sweet saved gold for the wizard tower you've been saving up on, so that way everyone else can see your prestigious architecture now looming over the rest of its inhabitants. Like the dread villain in training, Muddle, the kobold wizard. You could even roleplay or talk with NPCs in group chats or Discord chats to hunt for your next adventure hook. It's like getting to constantly play role-playing games even when you're not at the table rolling dice. Even though Discord can roll dice for you too. You could even try to earn some extra coin from professional careers, like I have as a supplement for Shadowdark RPG. The more time and energy that you and your players put into your game world, the more realized it becomes. Like an alchemically shared dream space, which is a unique property of tabletop role-playing games that surpasses video games, for it cannot be bounded by pencil scratches and computer codes, so long as we give it room to breathe. Did I go too far there? Are our players and NPCs real? Is that what it means by, in the beginning there was the word? Anyways, I hope you consider my points for a West Marches style campaign. I have been thoroughly enjoying it and have had almost 30 players join this campaign over its lifetime, which has only been since the beginning of this year. If you're interested in more Shadowdark supplements, please click down in the links below, where I keep a lot of my products on DriveThruRPG, like expanding the carousing outcomes or having wakes and funerals for your dead players. Or if you're interested, grab a seat at my open table West Marches campaign running Shadowdark, and see if this style is for you. Thanks for watching, everyone, and keep crafting.